In today's world, we're constantly looking for ways to do more in less time. Whether it's finding a quicker way to finish that work report or automating the endless chores of everyday life, the truth is, we all want to be a little more efficient. That's where AI steps in. It's like having a personal assistant that doesn't need coffee breaks, vacations, or even a pep talk. Now, if you're a fan of Dune, you'll recognize the ultimate computer-human hybrids, the Mentats. In a world shaped by outlawing, thinking machines, these folks are about as close as it gets while having their very own, very real human limitations. These highly trained individuals are capable of performing complex computations and analyses that rival modern machines, processing information at lightning speed without the help of computers. In the same way that a mentat supports rulers and strategists, AI can support us in optimizing our workflows, processing data, and even automating mundane tasks. While we may not be calculating intricate political strategies to run the galaxy, augmenting our day-to-day with AI works as a modern mentat, ready to reduce and enhance our workflows with seamless precision and only a few human limitations. So let's get into it. I'm going to walk you through how I use AI to streamline my process of creating YouTube videos and break down my process in augmenting workflows step by step. I'll show you some simple entry-level automations that anybody can use, as well as some more advanced options for when you're feeling bold. The great thing about automating your workflow is that it doesn't need to be overwhelming. You don't have to dive into the deep end on day one. Start small, and once you're comfortable, explore the more technical possibilities. The first step in all of this won't even involve AI. Before we start adding it into the mix, we need to understand what our current process looks like. This means building a workflow chart that breaks down every step of your project. Let's take my video production workflow as an example. First, I identify all the steps I take to finish a video. Then I go through one project like normal without any AI assistance so I can time each step. We don't do that because I'm in a rush, but because this will help us later on compare the before and after effects of using artificial intelligence for automation. From planning the video, scripting, recording, editing, and finally updating, everything goes into the chart. Now, each of these steps may have smaller tasks within them. For example, in the scripting phase, I may spend time researching, writing, and fact-checking. That's important to note because AI might be able to help take some of this off of our plate. Once I have this all laid out, I organize it into a clear workflow where I define any rules I follow. For instance, maybe I do my research first thing in the morning when my brain is fresh, or I always edit the first draft before moving on to my graphics. These little habits might seem trivial, but they'll help us pinpoint where AI can be the most effective. And you don't need any fancy software to do this. You can simply create your workflow in a Word document like I've done here, or you can put it into a fancy chart like this one to really visualize things. Keeping it detailed and blunt is key because the more straightforward your workflow is, the easier it'll be to spot opportunities for automation. Now that we've built our workflow, the next step is to define a clear objective. This is key because before we can start streamlining with AI, we need to know what we're trying to improve or automate. Remember, when we're using AI, we sometimes run the risk of putting the cart before the horse, and when we do that, it tends to cripple our ride. Sometimes you might already have a crystal clear goal, like I want to cut my video editing time down, but for others, you might be starting from scratch, just looking for areas to optimize. If you're in the latter group, don't worry, we'll dive into how to identify those opportunities together. To find your objective, take a close look at your workflow document and ask yourself, what takes up the most time, or what feels repetitive that could be done faster with some help? Once we've honed in on those goals, we can start thinking about how AI can step in and make life a little bit easier. With our workflow laid out, we can start identifying those stages that involve a lot of repetition, especially the ones that follow hard rules. These are going to be the prime targets for AI to swoop in and reduce your workload. Take this YouTube workflow, for example. One repetitive task I always deal with is generating video tags. For every single video, I have to create tags which follow a very clear set of rules. 500 characters max, separated by commas, and relevant to the video topic. It doesn't take forever to do manually if I'm being honest, but if we could automate it, we may as well. That's easily saved 10 minutes of time per video. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but trust me, it does add up over time. So to accomplish this, here's what I do. I design a prompt to generate the tags for me using AI, but before I just toss that into my workflow, I have to run a test. This is super important because you want to make sure that the output is accurate and useful before fully committing it into automation. After the test, I'm pretty satisfied with the result. It's not perfect, and I might tweak 1 or 2 tags later during the upload process, but we're 90% of the way there already. Since the output looks solid, I save this prompt for later use. Now, I can modify it and make it even more refined as I go, essentially just creating a template. This means future videos are going to take even less time to tag, and I'm freeing up the mental space to focus on other creative parts of the process. It won't stop there either. There are 2 other parts of the YouTube upload process that follow a very similar structure: the video description and the title. Like the tags, these tasks are repetitive and follow simple rules. They need to be relevant, engaging, and informative. With just a few tweaks, I can design AI prompts for these as well. In a matter of minutes, I've automated multiple parts of my workflow that would normally take me a solid chunk of time each week. And just like the tags, I run some baseline tests for the description and titles. And honestly, they're not too bad either. They don't hit every nuance I might have added manually, but they get pretty close. So once I'm satisfied with the results, I strip down all of the prompts into templates, keeping them simple and reusable. And just like that, they go into a Word document for easy access later on. No need for anything fancy, it's all about practical use here. The next thing we have to do is determine whether or not these prompts work best in a single thread or divided up over multiple threads. After a few rounds of trial and error, I find that running the descriptions, tags, and title together in a single thread gives me the best results. This was a super quick setup, but it shaves a good 15 to 30 minutes for every video. And remember, none of this was really complex. We did this all in a GPT front end. We didn't even have to touch a single line of code. Automation really can be this simple. We can take another small but incredibly annoying problem from my workflow and apply these same methods to it, but with something a little bit more complex: file conversions. There's this ridiculous issue when I'm sharing images from my phone to my computer. For some reason, they all come through as WebP files. My video and image editing software can't use them due to being so ancient, so I have to manually convert each one into a more usable format like a JPEG. It's not just tedious, it's an absolute time suck to do this for potentially 100 images over the course of a half-hour-long video. Here's the kicker. We don't actually need AI to do this, but we can use AI to augment this part of the workflow. Our options here are to build a script or possibly go out and buy a piece of software. Alternatively, we can use AI, and in just a few plain prompts, we can pull together a script that automatically converts all WebP images in a folder to JPEGs. And just like that, we've managed to automate another part of our workflow. This is the same method that we were using well over a year ago to replace paid tools like Uptime Robot, which monitors websites for downtime. Instead, we used AI to recreate the service with an AI-generated script to monitor and reboot a personal website with email alerts. Just be careful when diving into this kind of automation, because sometimes you can actually create more work for yourself, which is definitely the opposite of what we're trying to do here. For example, let's say I run the script to go ahead and convert those image files, but now I have the original WebP files cluttering my folder alongside the JPEGs. Sure, it's not a huge problem, but it is still an extra step, which defeats the point of automating the process. So what do? Well, we refine the prompt or even just the script itself by feeding it back into the AI for some tweaking. Now, the script not only converts the images, but also deletes the originals. All I'm left with are properly formatted JPEGs ready to use in my video editing software. At this point, we've got a lot of data generated by AI and some assets reformatted for easier use, but we haven't fully completed the workflow. We still need to get the actual video produced and uploaded to YouTube. And to do that, we're going to have to tackle a more complex aspect of the workflow that directly impacts the visuals you're seeing on screen right now. Enter what I call the emote sync stage. Here's the deal. I use PNG avatar images to add character and emotion to my videos, but manually syncing those images to the video's audio script can be a bit of a hassle. The idea here is to align different PNG frames with the ongoing audio, matching the emotion of each statement to a visual reaction. Every time a new emotion or statement is presented in the audio, the frame changes instantly. No crossfade, no fluff, just a simple hard cut to keep everything engaging and snappy. This is the most basic form of a PNG tuber you could ask for. It isn't complex, but it is incredibly tedious. To break this down a little more, my task is to assign PNG files to specific timestamps in the video. The rules are consistent and straightforward, which makes this a perfect candidate for AI augmentation. By setting up prompts or scripts to automate the timing of alignment of these visual frames, I'm not only saving time, but also maintaining a consistent level of quality in my content. Now that I've pinpointed what I want the AI to augment, having the AI listen to the audio, assign PNGs to specific timestamps, and then lay that all over a background video, it's time to figure out how to make that happen. This is something that would typically take me hours to do manually, especially since video editing is not my strong suit. Automating this, however, will save me a huge chunk of time in the video's production. But here's the thing, I'm no coding expert either, and I don't need to be for this. I can even use AI to help with the research itself if I really wanted to. By asking some basic questions, I quickly narrowed down some free APIs that could perform emotional detection on my audio files. And that's the beauty of AI. It even helps you find the tools to make your workflow easier. No paid subscriptions were ever required in this. Obviously, if you wanted something more controlled, you would do the research yourself though. So now I've got a potential of APIs lined up that can analyze the emotional tone in my audio, which is exactly what I need to get the sync right for the PNG images. Here's where the fun and sometimes frustration comes in, testing and implementation. I've identified the area of my workflow I want to automate. I've found an API to support it. But bad news, I've got a weak constitution for coding and maths. The good news is that we can overcome goblin brain limitations with just a little bit of prompting. This is where AI steps in once again. I can use an AI model to generate the code I need, and from there, it's all about testing and troubleshooting. Every time I hit a snag, I just prompt the AI with my problem, which is often as simple as copy-pasting the error message. To avoid overwhelming the AI with too much context, I sometimes start fresh threads when tackling specific bugs. Now, like with any project, sometimes you're going to hit a major roadblock. For me, that happened when I realized the APIs I wanted to use couldn't handle the length of my audio files. I couldn't just give up on the idea though, so I started to brainstorm an alternative. The solution actually ended up being pretty simple. I just broke it down into more manageable steps. Instead of directly analyzing the emotion of the audio files, I used an AI to translate the audio into text. Then I ran that text through an emotional analysis API. It's not what I initially planned, but it definitely got the job done. This allowed me to still automate the process, just in a slightly different way. I find sometimes people get bogged down so hard in finding a 100% or even 90% solution that we miss the obvious one sitting at 80% that we can continue to improve on over time. That is analysis paralysis in a nutshell, and I find it's one of the big things that stops people from being able to actually automate their workflows effectively. Here's what we ended up with for an emote sync script. The AI translates the audio to text, analyzes the emotional tone of the text, assigns the correct PNGs to specific timestamps, then overlays them onto the background video, and then finally it renders the output video. This brings us to the testing phase. I run smaller test files through the scripts and monitor the output for bugs or errors. Each time something comes up, I prompt the AI to help me fix it, just like we've been doing this whole time. Eventually, after refining the code and ironing out all the bugs, we have a working script. You might find this takes a few hours of prompting, testing, bug hunting, and everything else depending on how complex a particular step of your workflow is. Once the script is running smoothly, it's time for the real test here. How does this AI-enhanced workflow stack up against my traditional manual workflow? This is where we see how much time we're really saving. Remember, the goal of AI augmentation is to make our work easier, not more complicated. If all goes well, this new process will streamline video production, taking what used to be hours of manual work and reducing it to just a few clicks. Here's how I personally would approach a test like this. I'd time myself editing a 10-minute segment manually, doing everything by hand as I would traditionally. Then I run the same 10-minute audio segment through our newly automated workflow with the AI handling the bulk of the work using emote sync. At first glance, the time saving might not seem dramatic at all. The AI takes about half as long to prepare the rendered video as I do editing manually. In an ideal world, it'd be able to do this on the fly and we'd be back to editing in just a couple of minutes. But here's a crucial difference. While the AI is busy working on the video, I'm free to do literally anything else with my time. I can be gathering citations, creating thumbnails, or running those text automation for descriptions and tags that we set up earlier. This has the AI focusing on what we determine to be the grunt work so that we can focus on what might be considered a more important step of the process. This is where people tend to misunderstand AI automation on both small and large scales. It's not a magic button you push to get perfect results. You should always have a human in the loop, ensuring quality control and tweaking the output as needed. The last thing you want is an AI running wild, producing content that doesn't meet your standards, or even makes more work for you in the long run. For example, with those automated video tags and descriptions we set up earlier, I always go in and review the output. I might clip a few tags that don't quite fit well or swap them out for ones that I think will perform better, and I always scan the description to make sure it accurately represents the video that we've made. This maybe takes an extra minute or two, but that's nothing compared to the time it would have taken to write everything down from scratch. We've still saved a ton of time overall. Then there's the output from our AI emote sync compiler. I'm always double checking to ensure the PNG avatar is properly synced and that the background is working as intended, moving and playing smoothly. This doesn't add extra time to my process because while reviewing the emote sync output, I'm adding on-screen text and citations in the video, just like you're seeing with this one. So I'm staying productive while keeping an eye on the AI's work. The key here is balance. I'm a big believer in keeping a human in the loop. AI is an amazing tool, but it's not something where we can just let it roam freely without supervision, as some organizations seem to be pushing towards. There's always value in reviewing, tweaking, and improving the AI's output to fit your exact needs. You may notice there's a push in enterprise now to decrease the need for human in the loop, and I can't stress how stupid this is. Just like the black box, enterprise have been given the ability to do lots of hand-waving out here on the basis of human in the loop. Have a project that you're augmenting heavily with AI? It's okay because there's one human in the loop, one human who may or may not be working on this project full-time, who may or may not have the day off, who may or may not also be overseeing 20 other AI automation workflows. Human in the loop is an excuse for organization and a principle for individual creators. Okay, rants aside, as you start incorporating AI into your workflow, there's always going to be a point where you have to make a choice. Do you prioritize speed or do you focus on quality? Sometimes adding a new step can boost the overall production value, even if it does take a little more time. Let's give an example that we're actually using right now. In my previous video, a viewer pointed out that the background music was a bit hypnotic and repetitive for 20 plus minutes. And honestly, they weren't wrong. For longer videos, the same track on loop while editing made me feel the exact same way. So this seems like a perfect opportunity for us to fix an obvious issue. Now, I could take the quick route here, download a couple new tracks, mix them up, and call it a day, but instead, I make the conscious decision to push the quality of the content further. The way I do this is pretty simple. We just decide to use an AI music generation service to create custom background tracks that better match the style and tone of my videos. Yes, this took a couple of hours to set up, which is a decent chunk of time, but it improves the overall experience for the viewer. And much like our emote sync tool, this decision isn't about speed. It's about enhancing the content and freeing up focus. Emote sync automation streamlines the workflow, while this step improves the final product. When you're working on a project, you'll often have to make similar choices. You'll need to balance the time it takes to create or to integrate AI tools with the long-term benefits they provide. And honestly, as people, long-term gratification is one of the hardest things that we can pull off. So you're gonna have to think, is it worth spending a few extra hours up front if it saves you dozens of hours down the road? For me, the answer has always been yes, time and time again. To give you a sense of perspective, most of the AI tools I've shown you today, whether it's generating tags, descriptions, or syncing PNG tuber frames, were all set up and fine-tuned in just a few hours over the course of a couple of days. But they've saved me dozens of hours in the past few months and will save me hundreds of hours over the course of the next year. And, well, since I'm releasing them under a FOSS license, hopefully they'll be helping out someone else's workflow in addition to mine. Augmenting your workflow with AI might seem intimidating at first, but it's one of those things that once you get the hang of it, it can make your work life so much easier. There is a time and place for streamlining different stages of your process. I'm not here to tell you exactly when that is for you or your organization. Only you know when it's the right time to introduce AI tools into your workflow. For me, AI augmentation has been a game changer. No one's job has been replaced, and I can run all of these tools on local models if I really needed to, though obviously I've used GPT here for a matter of convenience. The takeaway is that AI saves me time, but it never takes control. I always keep a human in the loop, and I encourage you to do the same. AI should be about making work easier, not replacing people. AI is a powerful tool for indie creators, artists, and professionals across the board. It lowers the barrier of entry, giving you more freedom to focus on the creative aspects of your work rather than the repetitive or technical ones. I hope this video has inspired you to think about how you might change up your workflow with AI, whether it's something small or a complete overhaul. So that's a wrap. What part of your work would you like to automate if you could? Have you already started augmenting your workflow? Let me know down in the comments below. And hey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help this channel grow. Join me next time where we'll be attempting to augment a tortoiseshell with some cannons to see if we can finally bait Nintendo into a lawsuit. See ya, nerds.